the Harborview, the show where we check the pulse on what's going on in Hingham. We'll give you some quick updates and things to check out, and then speak with our community guests. Today we'll be speaking with Michelle Balconi and Steve Muzrall of Norwell Spotlight TV and Michael Puzo, Town Moderator for the Town of Hingham, about their respective roles and what we can anticipate in the near future for the Town of Hingham. Let's start with some headlines, provided by Town Leads as well as our Harbor Media blogger, Carol Meyer. Merchants, shoppers, and those passing by the near replica of the landmark 1859 Italian-style Lincoln building in Hingham Square are pleased to see that the fencing is down, a sure sign of progress. We're excited and looking forward to a grand opening possibly at the end of April, hosted at Tosca, said Charlene Flynn of TLC Real Estate, who owns the building with Revan Levy. This will add even more vibrancy to downtown Hingham. The building is being praised by town officials and residents alike following a long development process. The leases haven't been signed for the first floor retail space yet, but Flynn confirmed that TLC and 2 high-end boutiques will be among the 5 businesses on the first floor. We've been talking with a lot of different possible tenants, from high-end clothing boutiques to a gelato shop, she said. There are 4 one-bedroom units on the second floor and 2 two-bedroom penthouse units at the top floor. The original building, which was slated for eventual demolition, was taken down after the roof collapsed following several heavy snowstorms in early 2015. The plans got the final okay from the Zoning Board of Appeals in 2016. As the town meeting nears, there's been an ever-growing desire to learn more about the water company acquisition, and Harbor Media's got you covered. Most recently, our own Joe Collymore sat down with various town officials in regards to the big decision that will be made at town meeting. In a 4-part video series, Joe interviews Water Company Acquisition Study Committee Chair and member Jonathan Asher and Edward Siegfried, Selectman Mary Power, Karen Johnson and Paul Healy, and Town Administrator Tom Mayo. These videos can be found on our YouTube page or on our government and public channels in the Town of Hingham. Go to harbormedia.org for local airtimes. A new fire truck is here to the rescue at the Hingham Fire Department. The truck is a tower truck manufactured by Pearson, Wisconsin. Some of the features include a 100-foot tower topped with a bucket, water tanks, pump, hose, aerial ladder, and ground ladder. This truck comes much needed as it will be replacing a truck that has been in use for 20 years. This new investment will allow the department to work more safely and efficiently in their day-to-day operations. All right, folks, tonight we're talking to Steve Muzrall and Michelle Balconi of Norwell Spotlight TV. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it got started?
Sure, absolutely, Graham. Norwell Spotlight TV is a new venture in the town of Norwell. It's a partnership with Hingham Media to bring the great resources in town into community access. I'm a member of the town's Cable Advisory Committee. We've really been researching the different ways to share all the wonderful things happening in the town of Norwell with the community in a wider way over the past couple of years. We looked at different things, different companies, different ways. Maybe we could do it ourselves, maybe it could be all volunteer. Eventually we realized that we really wanted a true partner with experience in creating high value content. And that's why we brought in Harbor Media and Michelle and her team.
Excellent. So it's a new venture?
New venture, yeah, we're very excited about it. It's just, we're getting ready for our hard launch, but we've been really kind of practicing it over the past couple of months. Norwell signed the contract with Harbor Media in the fall, and they've been going gangbusters, filming new content, creating new shows. I think everybody knows Michelle in town already.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're excited about what's going to be happening during the spring and summer as we really roll out all the great content to the town of Norwell.
Yeah, a lot of good things are ramping up during the spring and summer. So what kind of shows do you guys have in the works?
Sure. So Michelle, I think, can talk a little bit more about some of the great content we're creating.
Sure, absolutely. So there are so many great organizations and really passionate people in Norwell. So the idea behind Norwell Spotlight TV is to shine a light on Norwell and just show the community what's already there, because there's so much to work with. So the very first series that we produced, and we have 8 episodes so far, is in partnership with the North and South River Watershed Association, the NSRWA, and South Shore Natural Science Center. So we created a show called Norwell Nature Watch, where the content of each episode revolves around nature topic, whether it has to do with the whales, plastic affecting our oceans, lighthouse series, that kind of interesting content and presentations that would be important to Norwell. We also have developed a show with two really passionate, talented ladies in town who focus on cooking and travel, Abby and Megan.
I like that.
Yeah, so a lot of people in Norwell know Abby and Megan, and we've developed a whole series for them around bringing culture of the world to Norwell through cooking and through travel. So that's another show that we're doing. Spotlight on the James is another show that we've been filming and producing with the James Library in town. There is so much arts and entertainment in this community that our spotlight for Norwell Spotlight TV just shines a light on it, and that's where the content is coming from.
For years, we on the cable committee were looking around town, and we saw this great opportunity with all the different nonprofit community organizations that were out there that were creating content, but they only happened in an instant and then were gone. And they were such great events that we thought, like, this is something that should be held for posterity. This is something that should be shown to people who can't make it to that event that night for whatever reason. And as Michelle just laid out with a number of those shows and so many other organizations, there's a lot that we have to shine a spotlight on in the town of Norwell.
Absolutely. You're kind of consolidating it also so people can kind of check it out in one place, one resource.
Exactly. We're trying to build that brand recognition right now so people know that they can turn to this channel and they're going to see their friends, they're going to see community leaders, they're going to see stuff that's impacting their town today happening on their channels.
How are you guys connecting with all these great organizations and people in the community? I mean, in terms of them getting involved and kind of having their story highlighted or sharing, you know, what they do?
Well, there are two main ways of connection. First is that our committee's got some great connections. We've got the Norwell Fire Chief on our committee, and we've got a member of the Board of Selectmen on our committee. So they're opening a lot of doors. They're making phone calls. They're opening the Rolodex. And then the next thing, that's where Michelle steps in. Michelle's taking that Rolodex, and she is calling, and she is knocking on doors and letting people know that this is there.
So your role is engagement.
Yeah, so that is my role, community engagement manager. I have to say, when something positive happens in a community, it spreads like wildfire. And you're making calls and making connections, and then all of a sudden you receive a flood of interested people. We have a talk show in development. We're working with the community theater on an arts and entertainment piece. So the calls just come in because we are showing that we want to be a partner in the community, and we want to provide this channel and this avenue for people and organizations to communicate with Norwell.
Excellent. So it's a win-win.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win.
Yeah. And it's going well because people are obviously connecting with you guys, and you guys are creating content and shows are doing
and great content too. When you watch what we were showing before, which was okay, but it wasn't that much real created content. Right. It was mainly just some town meetings and a couple of bulletin boards. What Michelle and her team have been able to do to really bring high quality production values, great filming, great editing. These are shows people are going to want to watch. They're going to enjoy watching. They're going to want to watch again.
And what kind of thing in terms of, it's one thing to just cover an event going on in town, right? Mm-hmm. Which is obviously very important. But what do you think in terms of what you guys are doing makes a difference when you're covering or creating newer content that's more cutting edge? Like you have this great nature show, you have this great food and travel show. It's team members, it's probably a lot of extra effort, obviously.
Well, I think it's everyone working together, but I know for a fact Norwell residents are absolutely ready to tell their stories and to share their passions on their own television station. With NSRWA, for example, they have such a commitment to the environment. They already put on dynamic programming. We're just their content partner in terms of filming and editing, and we have a fantastic team. Michael Hung is our full-time videographer.
I know Michael.
You know Michael?
He's a very cool guy, yeah.
Yeah, and then Ben Flynn has worked at Town Hall for years to help with the filming of the government meetings, which we still also take care of. And so that there's transparency in government. Those meetings are filmed at Town Hall and on their own set of channels within Norwell Spotlight TV. And it's just you can't help but get excited and want to do a good job for people in the community that are already putting on great programming that you would experience in person. We're just sending that out to a greater number of people on the TV channels.
Exactly.
I think it's making a great impact in the community through a ripple effect. While, as Michelle mentioned, the NSRWA, which has great membership, maybe those people don't know what's happening at the James Library. But if they're going to turn on Norwell Spotlight TV, see the spotlight being shown on the NSWRA, then immediately it's being followed by this great music production at the James.
Right, so it's connecting all these layers.
It's connecting all these people together. It's building that community further. It's allowing people to enhance their mission statement, to share what they do with the wider community, instead of just whatever their traditional audience has been.
Also, very early adopter for, NSTV. I have to mention Wendy Buabi from the Norwell Historical Society. Wendy is a wealth of information. She is just full of so much energy. And she, in her role and with the Historical Society, leads tours of antique historical homes in Norwell, which is a big part of the community to take care of property and tell the stories and pass down the stories. So Wendy is a natural on television. The phrase "a star is born" comes to mind when I speak of Wendy. So we have created a show with the Historical Society and Wendy as the host called Beyond the Doors.
Oh, cool.
And we take the viewers inside these homes and give them a private tour. Very HGTV
right,
style.
It has the same kind of feel and style.
It does, or it matched with this old house. So that's what we're giving Norwell, and these properties are in Norwell. Wendy obviously is in Norwell, and she has so much energy and enthusiasm that we are just spreading that to a wider audience through Norwell Spotlight TV.
That makes sense, and like with Hingham too, it's there's a lot of history in this part of in this area with all the towns. So it is a thing people do want to kind of learn more about and highlight. So.
And it's great to see the history in your own town.
Yeah,
I mean, how
exactly.
often we drive through these
Right.
beautiful towns we live in and be like, I do wonder what's behind that door.
And you might see the little blue symbol or something saying it's a historical house,
Yeah.
but what's really the story?
What's the history behind it? How did this help shape the community as it is today? Who used to live here? These are great stories to share with everybody.
Exactly. And video and media is a great way to obviously get a richer experience doing that. You guys have an event coming up on the 4th. It's a launch.
We do.
And,
so we, as Steve mentioned, we've been plugging along for a few months now, but our official unveiling and connecting with the community is Thursday, April 4th at Town Hall from 4 to 6. And that's our big launch party where we will showcase to the community what we've been up to. We will be showing many clips from the different shows that we're producing, connecting members of the community with their officials at Town Hall, because providing government programming is a big part of what we do. NSTV is what traditionally is called a PEG channel, providing public, education, and government programming. So we're bringing those folks together. We'll have representatives from the schools, the community, government, our TV host, Wendy Buabi, Megan and Abby for their show, folks from NSRWA and the James Library, all coming together to really kick this off.
Excellent.
It's that ripple effect that I talked about coming together in one room on one day. So we're really excited to share everything that we've been doing with the wider community at that day. It's going to be a fun day.
So what are the hours?
Sure, it's 4 to 6.
Nice.
On Thursday, April 4th.
4 to 6.
Yep, right at Norwell Town Hall. You get to meet our fantastic crew. You get to see how our systems work and everything. A lot of people don't know that some of this stuff is easy, some of it's hard. So it's a chance for people to learn actually how to do this. So they want to become more involved.
So they're going to see the behind the scenes, and I think we were talking about earlier about all the things that go into making it that much better of a program in terms of what you're covering and the original content. That's how it's happening. All the extra work, all the extra help and equipment you guys have and resources.
To show that it's not just showing up with a video camera.
Exactly.
It's really talking about it, being able to figure out what the event is, why it's being held, and making it a great presentation.
Excellent. So in the next year, what are some of the goals you guys have with Norwell Spotlight TV?
I think Michelle's going to take over town over the next year. I mean, she's
running for mayor.
Exactly. We just will hope to continue to grow our content. I mean, what they've been able to accomplish in the few short months that Norwell Spotlight TV has been in effect shows the wealth of content that's out there. And as more people see what we're creating, we're hoping they raise their hands and say, hey, I want to show you what we're doing over here at this organization, at this group. So we're hoping just to continue to expand our reach.
I say expand our reach, just like Steve said. And also there's another component of public access television, and that's something that Harbor Media has been doing in Hingham for years, and that is educating the public and giving access to the equipment to the public to go create their own content. I mean, you know, Harbor Media has some great shows for Hingham, most of which are member produced. Kids shows, talk shows like yours, really great shows. So we will be doing and hope to do the same thing in Norwell, following that model and providing for the residents in Norwell access to the equipment to produce their own content. So we're out filming and then we're editing and we're putting it on TV, but the idea is to provide that also to the community to produce their own content.
It was really one of the final selling points for us to decide to partner with Harbor Media is your facilities, your staff, to be able to have a studio like this, to be able to have the professional expertise that are here and now making them available to the residents of the town of Norwell. What a great bonus for the town.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of great potential in terms of that relationship and just relationships with all the people you guys are working with, all the shows you guys have in the can and the ones that you have on now, the ones that you're going to develop. I mean, where do you guys see the vision going? I mean, of public access in town media?
Well, there's a lot of public access TV is in a bit of a flux right now. There's a lot going on with FCC funding, you know, financial stuff. But you also see the other side of it. The content producing side has never been bigger.
Right.
And you see what people are producing every day to put up on YouTube,
especially
and video.
with digital.
Especially with digital.
Yeah, it's changed the game.
It's so much easier in some ways to be able to show something. It's now part of who that next generation is. Like, they live in the digital atmosphere. Yeah. So to have this resource for that next generation is a great thing too. Like, here's a way to do it right. Learn how to film, to light, to edit, to do everything. What a great resource.
Yeah, so that's definitely all of those things, and the equipment and the training is available to Norwell residents. And I should say also that the content that we put on the channels is also available online. So if you were to go to townofnorwell.net, the town website, you'll see on the front page a link to live video. And some people I know go there to review a government meeting that has happened, that if they didn't see it broadcast, they can go back and rewatch that meeting. Well, we are also putting our TV shows on there so that our content lives on your TV, but also in that digital space as well.
So all the TV shows are going to be living there as well.
Yes, they will be. And that way, you know, some of our residents in Norwell maybe go to Florida for 3 or 4 months. They've got a computer and can go online. Then they'll have access to the public content and the education and government content as well.
Which makes sense with this kind of era of how people consume content and media. You know, you have your live stuff, you have maybe things that you air again, and then you have your on-demand platform, which would be the website with all the episodes and content you guys are creating so people can check it out.
And in that way, we are committed to, you know, furthering what Norwell had already done, and that's filming the government meetings and making them available for residents. That's part of government transparency, and that really is one of the core concepts of PEG TV, public education and government, providing that service to your town. That's why it's really important to still have and fund public access television.
Excellent. Well, hey guys, I really appreciate you guys coming on, and we'll be looking forward to all the new great content coming out and checking out shows you guys already have.
Great, thanks so much, Graham. I just want to urge people, if they don't already know, to check us out on Comcast channels 9 and
40 are our government meetings. And then if you like our public and education content, that's 22 and 39. So 22 on Comcast, 39 on Verizon. And then channel 9 on Comcast for government and 40 on Verizon.
And if people, organizations, and businesses and others want to get in contact with you guys to discuss opportunities, what's the best way to kind of reach out?
I would say, you know, go to our website.
Go to the website?
NorwellSpotlightTV.com.
Excellent. And then from there, they can
give me a call.
They can give you a call. All right. Hey, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Graham. Really appreciate it.
folks, welcome tonight. We're talking to Michael Puzo, town moderator of the town of Hingham.
Thanks.
How you doing tonight?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. So the thing I wanted to dive right into and to kind of discuss for those that don't know is what is town meeting and what happens at town meeting?
Well, town meeting in a word is the legislature. It's the legislature for the town of Hingham. And if you contrast what we're used to in state and national government, we're used to representative government. You elect a representative, you elect a senator, and that person represents you on legislative matters. Contrast that with open town meeting in the town of Hingham. You are the legislature. So we like to say that in the town of Hingham, every voter is welcome, encouraged to participate in the meeting, and you come with voice and vote. You can be heard, your voice counts, your vote counts. So in a nutshell, that is what the meeting is. In terms of how the meeting is conducted, meeting basics, we begin on the fourth Monday of April each year. This year it's April the 22nd. And what happens sequentially is in advance of the meeting, every Hingham household gets a warrant booklet. It comes in the mail, and if we remember our Latin, it's a warning. It tells you you're warned to come to the meeting, to participate in the meeting, because important things are going to happen. The warrant consists of a series of articles. Every article is a question. If you look at the warrant when it comes in, you'll see that there are a series of questions posed. Each one says, will the town of Hingham do X? Will the town of Hingham do Y? Will the town of Hingham do Z? Will it spend money? Will it change the zoning laws? Will it acquire the water company? All of these things are posed as questions. That's what an article is. Then in the course of the warrant booklet, what follows the article is a comment to aid the voter in making his or her decision. And then typically there is a recommended motion of the advisory committee. If the recommended motion of the advisory committee is a positive, to do X, to do Y, it will be stated in that form, and it will be received by the moderator as the main motion before the meeting. Sometimes the advisory committee thinks that this particular question does not warrant action at this time, and it will propose no action. That's what you call in town meeting parlance a negative motion, that nothing happened. Now you as a voter may think, I think something should happen. I think there should be positive action on the question before the meeting. Then you could make a motion to the chair. If your motion was seconded, it would be received as the main motion before the meeting, before the legislature, and we would debate it and ultimately decide it. So in a nutshell, that's what town meeting is. The town's legislature, every voter with voice and vote, important issues decided for the town, by the town.
And how many questions are usually included when someone gets the booklet?
Sure. 40, 45.
Wow.
A lot of questions.
So people need to be up on do their research and kind of be up on the issues going on generally.
That's correct. We are greatly benefited in Hingham by a tradition of town meeting where people understand and appreciate the privilege they have of self-governance, and they do prepare. They read what's available to them, they watch your programs, they see what's happening in the town. The warrant booklet is extremely well done. If one was away, for example, until Sunday, April 21st, and out of reach, and came back and studied the booklet, studied the warrant, they would come to the meeting well prepared to make a thoughtful decision on each of the questions before the meeting.
So it sounds like the booklet in itself has most of the information that a voter would probably need for a lot of those issues.
Correct. I mean, you certainly benefit, and the voters here take their franchise seriously, you certainly benefit by taking time to consider the matters that are going to come before the meeting and to be prepared to listen. Because I will emphasize that one of the critical dynamics, if you will, of the meeting is the listening part of getting together in a room or a series of rooms with fellow citizens, and you listen to debate. Questions are raised, comments are made, observations are shared, and ultimately you can sense that the considerations have been aired, the opinions have been voiced, and the moderator will say, we now come to vote, and we'll vote. Now, of course, there are some issues that are presented as articles, questions, that are absolutely non-controversial. Will the town apply excess funds to reduce the tax rate? That's like asking a bunch of kids, would you like ice cream? Yes, we'd like our taxes reduced. So those tend to go fairly quickly. Other issues before the meeting might be quite complicated, and the meeting, the participants, will benefit from debate, discussion, listening, and informing their judgment. It's good for people to come to the best of their ability with an open mind on the questions that will come before the meeting.
Well, what's the longest you've kind of seen a meeting go or deliberation go before a vote?
A couple hours.
Okay.
I would say.
And for those that don't know, are these issues decided based on a voice vote or a written vote? How does that?
Sure. I'd be happy to speak to the voting procedure, because obviously it's essential to the functioning of the meeting. So in Hingham, in our bylaw, it's not merely a tradition, it's hardwired into the Hingham Town Bylaw. That's where you find the bulk of the procedures that we follow at town meeting. Some of them flow from state law, but they're succinctly gathered in terms of our local procedures in the Hingham Town Bylaw. So to answer your question specifically, all votes are taken in the first instance as voice votes. You can think about a voice vote, or in some towns it's a hand raise, all in favor say aye, all opposed, nay. But in Hingham we use a voice vote. And that is what is called a called vote. It is a called vote. The moderator listens, and let's suppose it's absolutely clear, going back to my tax reduction question. It's clear that everybody is in favor of this. They've read it, makes sense, they vote it. The moderator will hear that and say, the ayes have it, the motion is adopted. We now move to Article X. Suppose I'm in doubt. I'm not certain if say it's a toss-up, it's 50-50. Or suppose it requires a 2/3 majority, and I'm not sure. Then I would say the moderator is in doubt. We will now proceed to a counted vote. So if the moderator is in doubt as to the outcome of the voice vote, or if 7 voters should rise and question the call of the moderator, it's kind of like you're going to go to the replay, right?
Like a sports game.
Right, yeah. Then we'll have a counted vote. And we adopt a counted vote or conduct a counted vote by standing. That is our first method by which we conduct a counted vote. I'll say we'll now proceed to a counted vote, which we will do as a standing vote. Now, there is a procedure to bypass the standing vote and go to a different form of counted vote, a ballot vote. So if we go to a counted vote, I will then announce, as we do every time there is a counted vote, and there aren't as many as one might think by any means.
How often? I mean,
there are many times there is not a single counted vote. Every vote is a called vote.
Called vote.
And that if there is a counted vote, most typically it's a standing vote. But there is a procedure that is at the behest of the meeting to do the following. To have a ballot vote if one of two things happens. Either 50 voters or more rise and ask that the counted vote be a ballot vote, or if the advisory committee, which is a 15-member committee, if the advisory committee, pursuant to its policy or procedure, calls for a ballot vote. Okay? So always it's voice vote first. If there's doubt or 7 voters doubt my call, we go to a counted vote, which counted vote is taken as a standing vote unless advisory or 50 voters call for a ballot vote. Now, a ballot vote takes a considerable amount of time, particularly if it's a well-attended meeting. So our tradition has been to use the standing vote as the counted vote unless there's compelling reason to have a ballot vote, which obviously is evidenced by one of two things: advisory calls for the ballot vote, or 50 or more voters stand and call for a ballot vote, in which case we have a ballot vote.
And if it segues to a ballot vote, is that something that occurs at a different time, or is it?
No, it happens right then.
Okay.
The voters are given ballots, and the way the articles are crafted, every question, every article is susceptible of a yes or no answer. So the questions are all phrased in a way that they can be answered yes or no. The ballot, not surprisingly, has yes on one side and no on the other. So what you do as a voter is you tear that ballot in half and you put the part that you want to vote, suppose you want to vote in the affirmative, you put the yes side in the ballot box and you dispose of the no side in the wastebasket that is at your feet.
Gone forever.
Gone forever in the mist of time.
And the voice vote, now, when you're initially doing the voice vote, do people literally just voice their vote all at once, or is it done in order?
It's done all together. Let us assume that it's a one physical site meeting. So we're all gathered in the high school gymnasium, the Hingham High School gym. And let's assume there are 800 voters or so, and they're in the room together. And I say, we now come to vote on X. The recommended motion of advisory is to do such and such. All in favor of the recommended motion of advisory, please say aye. There's a hearty aye. It's clear. All opposed, please say no.
Oh.
No.
So it can, not always, but it can be clear in terms of...
It tends to
Right.
be clear on much more frequently than not.
That makes sense. And it sounds like this tradition is pretty specific to the bylaws of Hingham and the history of Hingham. How different would you say this process is compared to other towns in Massachusetts or in New England or in general in the United States?
Oh, the United States.
That's probably, yeah. I didn't want to go that far, but maybe New England.
I just got back from Utah, but I don't know how they vote there. Let me just focus first on Hingham. Hingham has the kind of classic New England governance. It has town meeting. So if you think about, say, a larger town, Weymouth or Braintree, that are towns, but have more of a city form of government with a mayor, or if it is a city, say the city of Quincy or the city of Boston, they have a city council. You elect your councilor from your district, from your ward, and then there's a mayor. Now, what Hingham has is New England town meeting, where the meeting is both a gathering. So think of the word more typically, we think of a meeting. Oh, are you going to the meeting? I just came from a meeting to come down here. But the meeting was simply a gathering to make some board decisions. Hingham town meeting, as I said at the outset, is the town's legislature. And as the town's lawmaking body, it's open. Many towns of Hingham size and even smaller have maintained town meeting as their form of government with selectmen, but they have gone to representative town meeting. Brookline, Winchester, Belmont, there the voters elect the members, they elect the members of town meeting. And those people serve as representatives. So to your question, in many places in New England, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, those towns still have town meeting. Hingham is unusual in terms of having as many voters as we have, over 16,000 registered voters, to maintain a commitment to open town meeting.
Rather than having representatives.
Correct. And many times, people will look at Hingham or be looking to buy a home in Hingham and think, boy, Hingham's a lovely place. And Hingham has a lot going for it. And I would submit that in addition to lovely geography and access to the water and lots of conservation land, that many of the reasons that the amenities of Hingham exist as they do, that the schools are as good as they are, that community preservation is as high a priority as it is, trace their way back. If you find, like, how did that come to pass? It came to pass through town meeting. Town meeting is a critical component of the DNA of Hingham. You take ownership of these critical decisions. And if you think about, and I don't mean this in any critical way of the state legislature or the Congress, you elect people to go make those decisions for you. If you don't like what they're doing, in 2 years or 6 years, you can elect someone else.
Right.
But here, Hingham voters take that responsibility on themselves. They do it on the floor of town meeting, and they do it throughout the year as members of town boards and town committees. And the voluntarism that we have in Hingham of people stepping up and taking on these roles, unpaid, voluntary roles. They might be on the planning board, the advisory committee, the personnel board, the zoning board of appeals. I mean, these are critical decisions that are being made by citizens. And it's a defining characteristic of the town.
Wow, it's so connected to the history of democracy and the importance of democracy.
It is quintessential democracy. It's what de Tocqueville saw when he came around and wrote, Democracy in America.
It's the real stuff.
It's the real stuff.
So we got an important meeting coming up, April 22nd, and what are a couple of there are, a few issues obviously, or many issues, but what are some of the main issues, I guess, quickly that folks really need to start doing some research on if they already haven't?
Well, as always, the budget is an essential issue. We have a kind of a standing order of certain articles, and early in the warrant, you have the Personnel Board reports on issues that relate to salary, wages, settlement of union contracts, and then that's traditionally Article 4. Article 5 focuses on the salaries of certain town employees, which tends not to be a controversial issue ever. And then you get into Article 6, and Article 6 is the budget. And obviously, a substantial amount of the town's spending is all done in that budget. So it's the school budget, the fire, police, the public safety, the dispatchers, and the way we do that, and hopefully for the participants in town meeting, it's not as though they're watching paint dry, is to go through that line by line. And I go through it at a fairly brisk pace, but not too brisk. And we read the line items. And suppose you question a particular line item. You can call out in a good voice, hold. And I mark down, we're holding that one. So at the end of Article 6, the budget, we then will vote on all the matters that have not been held. Then we go back and decide the matters as to which a question was raised. They were held.
Right.
And then ultimately, we vote the budget.
Is that just to ensure that obviously everyone understands the information and transparency, et cetera?
Yeah, and it's also, it flows from the reality of what the meeting is. The meeting is the legislature.
Right.
So if you are a legislator, you say, I'm not ready to vote on that particular line item. I want it held. But you also don't want to hold every item in the entire budget. So it works well. This year, of course, we have a significant matter before the meeting, which consists of 4 discrete questions that relate to the potential acquisition under the 1879 charter of the Hingham Water Company. Now, the first of those questions is the seminal question, which is effectively, will the town exercise its right under the 1879 charter to purchase the Hingham Water Company? And that, of course, is a complicated issue, and we will have, I'm sure, substantial conversation and debate about that question. At some point, it will be clear to the meeting that the voices have been heard, that perhaps the conversation is getting somewhat repetitive. Voters are making the same point that an earlier voter made and an earlier voter made. And at that point, what the moderator will often hear is someone will say, I move the previous question. And effectively, what the motion for the previous question is in common language is, let's vote. Right. Let's move it. And if that motion is made too early, and that's the moderator's call, if the motion is made too early, the moderator will, in his or her discretion, decline to accept the motion for the previous question.
So you do that based on just the whole deliberation that you've been witnessing and...
Correct. And you make a judgment call that the people are not ready to vote yet. Right. There are voices that have not been heard. And at some point, with some experience, you conclude this is getting repetitive, or you look at the clock and say, it's time.
Right.
I, at one point, I think it was last year, had the motion for the previous question put before me, and I declined to accept it because I felt it was premature, that there was conversation, meaningful conversation and debate yet to be had. And we went on for another 10 minutes or so, and then someone moved the previous question again. I accepted it. I explained what the motion for the previous question entailed, what the motion for the previous question entailed. And that allows me to explain to the meeting that will end debate. But again, it's the meeting's call. It's not my call. I can accept the motion for the previous question, but I will then say the motion for the previous question is before the meeting. If you want to end debate and move to the vote, you will vote in favor of the motion for the previous question. If you are not ready to vote and you would like to hear more debate, you will vote against the motion for the previous question.
And then based on that, you decide where you...
Now let's assume that the vote is in favor of the motion for the previous question. It carries,
right.
Handily. I can hear it. Oh yes, that was emphatically in favor of moving to vote. The motion for the previous question has carried. We now come to vote on the motion before the meeting. Because one other thing that I take this opportunity to emphasize is very often people will say, oh, what action did we take? We voted Article 12. And without being too picky, to me it's a meaningful distinction. You say, well, we don't actually vote articles. Articles are questions. That's just a question. In order to take action, in order to move something along, you have to make a motion. So we actually take action or vote on motions. So again, going back...
So it's a two-part, in a sense, you're handling the question, and then from there, it's what,
Yeah, that's a good segue to the warrant sets forth a series of articles, batch of questions. Then there's a comment that puts gloss on the question, gives background. There have been hearings. This is what it means. This is what state law requires. And then there's typically, if the advisory committee is making a positive recommendation, then it will say advisory recommends this certain action.
If that's the case.
Correct. If they think this should just not move forward, they recommend no action. No action should be taken on this. Just let it, it's a negative motion. And that's what the meeting votes on. The meeting may well agree with advisory and say, yes, we accept the no action, we vote no action. But again, if voters want positive action, they can make that motion.
Right.
And then we'll vote on that.
Well, Michael, you're obviously very extremely knowledgeable about town meeting and the process, and very passionate about it. What do you enjoy about being a town moderator in the process of town meeting?
Well, it's a real privilege, and I am committed to self-governance. That it's an incredible responsibility. not that the moderator has. I mean, I have a series of duties and responsibilities that are significant, and I certainly discharge them to the best of my ability. But to live in this community and to have the ability to take ownership of these issues is an extraordinary privilege. I mean, so many, you asked about the country.
Yeah.
The country, in the United States, we at least have the ability to go to the polls to make decisions. In so many places, there are people who are disenfranchised, who don't have this opportunity for whatever reason. The fact that we can assemble on Monday night, April the 22nd, at Hingham High School at 6 or 6:15 to make sure we can start at 7, and to make these decisions freely with our fellow citizens. And when we come to vote, we vote. And the will of the people is expressed through that franchise, and we move on. And we go through that warrant article by article by article. And sometimes, I mean, it was last year, we were able to conclude the business of the warrant in a single night. Other years, it might take a second night, or a third night, or a fourth night. But the meeting works efficiently. And what I enjoy about it is, Hingham was founded in 1635. And for 380 plus years, we have had this tradition. I mean, if you have the occasion to go to the old ship church on Lower Main Street, they call it the meeting house for a reason.
Right.
I mean, that's where the community met. And they met there to make decisions of critical importance to the town a very long time ago. And we still do it. And it's not just nostalgia on my part. Oh, isn't that lovely?
Right.
Isn't that effective? Isn't that extraordinary? That faced with issues about zoning, community preservation, the banning of single-use plastic bags, say, do we want to just get rid of them in town of Hingham? Or do we think that they're a convenience, that we will accept the clutter or the litter? I mean, the town will make that decision. The town will decide whether Gold Star parents who lost a child in the service of the United States will have a tax benefit, if that's the right word for it, some recognition of what they have given through tax relief. The community will make that decision. And I think that that is an extraordinary element of Hingham's DNA. And I will do my best to play a meaningful role in continuing that tradition.
How do people find out any more information or take their questions? Is there a website, or is there someone they can reach out to?
Sure. There are a number of ways to get good and accurate and timely information about the meeting. Right. First and foremost, the town's website is extremely well run. It's kept up to date. All of the information, the basic information about where's the meeting. I post, for example, a moderator's message on the town website. I put up news flashes about meeting procedures, how we vote, what's the difference between an article and a motion, those kinds of things. The town meeting section of the Town of Hingham, the official website, gives you the basics. Obviously, you people do an excellent job carrying local meetings, running public service announcements, and they kind of roll so you can see what's happening. Obviously, we also have the Hingham Journal, now the Hingham Anchor. I have a Facebook site where I post things I think will help people find the meeting, understand the procedure. Those immediately come to mind.
Right, so it's all out there, it's all transparent.
It is.
The website sounds like a great start for most people.
It is, and we expect a major turnout this year. There are a number of matters before the meeting that are garnering, understandably and appropriately, significant public interest. Primary of which, of course, is the question of purchasing or not purchasing the water company, and then certain things that would, no pun intended, flow from that. I expect that we will have a larger turnout than we typically have.
Okay.
And I'll take just a minute to say, if that does occur, as I suspect it will, we'll have to use multiple venues within the high school. So we'll have the main venue within the high school will be the gymnasium. We will likely have voters in the auditorium. We'll likely have voters, or we certainly could have voters in the cafeteria. And we also have large classrooms, 2 of the music rooms, and then one of the other classrooms that's an oversized classroom. We've had that in the past. When you're using multiple venues, I will appoint assistant moderators to preside in each of those other venues. They're all hooked into the main venue through television and audio, so I can see what's happening in all of those other venues.
So they will actually be voting in all these different areas within the same area, but in different facilities and rooms.
Correct.
Wow. And that typically doesn't happen.
It doesn't typically happen, Graham, but it certainly has happened. Before I was the town moderator, I presided as an assistant, appointed by then moderator Tom O'Donnell, to preside in the cafeteria. And you have a screen behind you. If you're the moderator, you have an assistant, you have a screen behind you that is projecting the meeting from the gymnasium, and you are connected to the meeting. And for example, I would say back then, Mr. Moderator, there is a voter in the cafeteria who wishes to be recognized. And the then moderator, Tom, would say, I will recognize the voter in the cafeteria. And that person stands up and gives his or her opinion. So it's a rich tradition, Graham. And I was smiling because I don't know if you've ever had occasion to look at the Norman Rockwell rendering of the 4 freedoms that was articulated by President Roosevelt.
Norman Rockwell has popped in my mind during this conversation.
Yeah, well, and well he should. When Rockwell depicted the 4 freedoms, what he chose as his subject for freedom of speech was New England Town Meeting. And if you're ever out in Stockbridge, you see the painting out there, and it shows a man, a real craggy-looking New Englander, on his feet, voicing his opinion at New England Town Meeting. And the other kind of Rockwell characters are circled around him, and they're looking up and they're listening to him. And that was Rockwell's way of saying, this is freedom of expression at its best. And that's what we'll start Monday night, April 22nd, here in Hingham.
Michael, thank you for coming on. Appreciate
My pleasure.
it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent conversation.
Great.
Thank you so much.